So we want to look at if it's elevated, then there's natural things that we can do to remove it. However, if someone doesn't have any kind of heavy metals and they take a chelator, oh, I'm taking charcoal, I'm taking some kind of binder, then guess what they're doing? They're actually removing more of their nutrients and they're chelating out minerals and they have mineral deficiencies, but they don't test it, so they don't know. Then the patient gets tired, they get exhausted, and they think like, guess what? You might have more toxins, so you got to do another round again, right? So we have both sides of the camp where doctors are not treating people for toxicity because it's just not on their radar usually, and then the alternative world is kind of treating people thinking it's a toxicity, but not measuring it or giving them targeted things to remove it, or not treating them at all because they don't have a problem. Everybody has a symptom, just like the GI, and they can treat it with a variety of things that sound good, but we need to measure, is that their problem? Because if not, by even doing some of the detox program or a heavy metal removal or any kind of program, you actually can be causing more problems. We then work with our patients looking at filtering their water, right? Because we look at their environmental working group, we look at their zip code, we look at their municipality, and we look at what are the things that are elevated, and then what kind of filter should they use that will remove those toxins, especially if they're elevated. If they're elevated, then probably a reverse osmosis or a Berkey filter, or anything else that can really clear out those toxins. And then also we can help our patients with, after they filter the water, how to energize the water, how to structure the water. This is another level of health. I did a whole lecture on The Real Truth About Health about wellness technologies. Go back and listen to that. We'll talk about Jiva water devices. These are things that after you filter, how can they improve the cellular function of your body? It's a new topic. How do we actually improve yield of your growth? If you're a gardener and you're saying, hey, I have a garden in my backyard, or I'm watering my fields, we can improve 30-40% of your growth of your crop and the nutrient density of your food. And I'm always encouraging everybody to grow a little bit of a garden and start learning how to grow food, because that's an important part. It's also part of healing. It's part of getting back into nature, and also just understanding what it takes to actually grow food is a valuable resource of learning things about nature. Now, when we look at toxins and we look at elements of toxicity, it's important to actually test these things like I've been talking about, and not just randomly think, okay, I have heavy metals. A lot of people that have cancer or chronic disease, they think they have the heavy metals. Oh, I got to go do heavy, like, do you have it? Test it, okay? And if you don't have it, guess what? You don't have to do any of those programs. So the idea is that we want to always make sure that whatever someone's doing, do we have a result saying this is why? Otherwise, and also more importantly, after they've done a program, which we will help them with, if they're elevated, has it resolved their problem? Because a lot of people I did this program for 30 days, or I'm on this program that I go every 6 months to a retreat center and I do some kind of detox. Well, how are we testing that? Why are you spending thousands of dollars if you don't know? And is it now too much? Are you now depleting nutrients, right? So this is an important way to actually start evaluating the nutrient toxicities, nutrient elements, whether they're high or low. More importantly, most of you might have heard recently about the toxicity of plastics. And in cardiovascular and in the endarterectomies, in the arteries, in the neck, they found that in 60% of the patients, they had about 60% of them have what they call microplastics and nanoparticles, right? Like one liter bottle of water has 200,000 micro nanoplastic particles, right? Which are now getting into our coronary vessels and our vascular health, causing the sharing. It kind of like, it's like a shard of glass. It actually causes sharing. So those people that have the microplastics, which is now majority of the population, part of their heart disease is actually an environmental toxin on top of the pro-inflammatory cholesterol, pro-inflammatory foods, saturated fats. Now we have to look at environmental toxicities, right? So we want to make sure that people are now, not drinking from bottled water, not reusing bottled water, using glass, and try not to go, and they spend a lot of money. You can get a reverse osmosis, cost you 3 cents a gallon. Half my patients go to the health stores and the grocery markets and spending 39 to 49 cents a gallon. It's crazy. You don't have to spend all that money and give it away. We can do things safely and effectively in the home, and we will guide people. Like, these are different companies that you can use. You can just go to the local store and get some of these things. But we want to make sure that we're matching, is there toxin in their environment removed by their filter that they're using? And with the microplastics, one other reason to go plant-based. Interesting thing is, although we find it in the vessels in most of these patients now, we're now looking at it that some of these microplastics are other problems. We're seeing nodules in people's lungs for decades. We didn't know what it was. We'd go and try to biopsy. It's not cancer. We couldn't figure out what these nodules are. Now we're looking at some of these nodules. We're not looking at now these microplastics, and especially nanoplastics can cross blood-brain barrier in the brain. And now we're looking at some of this. Well, we have cognitive problems, tau's, tangles, and protein plaques, but some of that dysfunction and disruption is actually microplastics in the brain. Now we're looking at what they call GFR, your glomerular filtration rate, chronic kidney disease in patients. We have tons of patients now. We have this chronic kidney disease problem where the kidney filtration is going down as they get older. Standard American diet, blood pressure, blood sugar, inflammation, et cetera, et cetera. We all know that those affect your kidney function. But then even patients that are plant-based and they don't have any of these other risk factors, over the last couple of years, we've been seeing this GFR go down and down and down. And it's my belief, which I'm sure they'll show in the future, is that the little kidney microtubules are also getting clogged with these microplastics and nanoplastics. This is a huge environmental toxicity problem. So we want to start eliminating as much excess plastics in the environment and excess plastics from getting exposure. So this is key. Now, why we want to go plant-based? Because the study showed that microplastics and nanoplastics now is in all foods. Okay, so you can't get away from it. But the plant foods have the lowest level of them all. So if I get organic tofu, it will still have microplastic in it. However, it's the lowest level of microplastic because it's just from the watering from the fields. This is watering from the even the rain. I mean, microplastics are everywhere now. So it's not just like a bad pipe or a factory that's growing it. This is just nature now. It's contaminated, right? But as we eat animal proteins, the animal proteins have the highest. And the larger the animal, like in my book, which I talk about bioaccumulation of like environmental toxins like mercury now coming, highest, say, for example, say in fish, and also the second highest in chicken, because they feed, the chicken the fish meal, right? Which is a bioaccumulation of the mercury from the ocean now. But now we're seeing microplastics in all animals, fish, chicken, and beef, actually, and pork, and beef having the highest, because the larger the animal, the more accumulation of water it's drinking through its life cycle and the more bioaccumulation, even in organic grass-fed beef. So I always hear people, I'm eating clean. There's no such thing as clean animal protein. Now we understand this microplastic. So they only eating a lot of animal protein not only is causing the cholesterol problem, they're actually getting more microplastics than someone eating a plant-based protein. They're still getting some, but not in that higher level. So that's another reason to be moving more plant-based. Now, the last test we're going to talk about today is methylation testing. If you have a history of being sensitive to medications, so if you're someone who says, you know what, no matter what drug I take, I get side effects. I get patients all the time, probably 2-3 times a week. Doctor, I take anything. I'm allergic to everything. Like they think they're allergic to it. I have a problem. I get diarrhea. I get a rash. It gives me headaches. I have to take a pediatric dose, or I whatever the doctor gives me, I always cut it in half before I take a smaller dose. Or people who are sensitive to alcohol. Yeah, I don't drink, or if I drink, I feel like so hungover the next day, doc. And I just had a glass of wine with dinner, or I had a beer after the game, and it's just knocking me out. Or people who have problems with anesthesia. Yeah, I had surgery. I had my hip surgery, and I was out. Like they moved me to the other room because I was just snoring. I was still asleep for many hours later. Then we have to look at those people are having methylation issues. Those people are sensitive to fragrances. I walk into the mall and during Christmas time, they're spraying all this stuff. I got to get out. That smell just drives me crazy. I start getting headaches. I get panicky. This is what we're now looking at. There's genetic issues called methylation. And we used to be, there's only one gene. Now we understand that there's 5 genes that are down-regulating, which means they slow down your metabolism, and there's 4 genes that up-regulate. That means your faster metabolism. And this is important because it's not just looking at what we used to think was B12, folic acid. That was kind of the whole methylation issue for many years. It's like, okay, these people that have this problem, they need to make sure that when they're taking folic acid, if it comes naturally from green leafy vegetables, for example, it's already methylated. That's why we want whole foods in the diet, right? But when we got fortified foods and they put folic acid in these patients, they didn't do very well. In fact, it actually causes more disruption. And if they took a super B complex and it wasn't methylated, it actually caused them to have side effects, for examples, right? So we look at those methyl forms of B12 and folic acid in these patients. But more importantly, what this led us to is understanding the whole process of how they detoxify and produce energy. And then these people end up having more issues of not just bad stuff like, say, alcohol or tough things like anesthesia. But remember, we're getting exposure to chemicals every day. And even if you had a whole food, plant-based diet, organic, your body still has to create waste and excrete it. But if it doesn't do that appropriately, then all those pro-inflammatory metabolites that we're excreting out, whether it's from a healthy source or a toxic source, that builds up and that creates more risks of inflammation. That causes more risk of chronic diseases and cancer. So this is a really important thing because when people have these issues, now we can help them prep before surgery and what to take after surgery. How do we improve their outcome overall? It's not saying don't do this or don't do that. It's like we got to do hip surgery. They got to get their hip replaced or they got to get their knee replaced or they're going to get chemo. How do we lower their side effects and improve the outcomes? That's our specialty. Remember, it's not anti-drug, it's anti-side effect. And it's how do we get the people to get the biggest bang from the buck, even from a supplement or from a natural therapy? We have to look at targeting it the most. Now, what I want to end with a couple of things is that we are coming out and everybody's excited. I'm super excited to announce that we will be coming out with our podcast. We had a radio program. If you go on YouTube and you look at our channel, you can see that we had a wonderful year of a program called Take Back Your Health. We had over 100,000 active live listeners every episode, and we want to bring all those people back and even more. But now we're going to move to a podcast form. We're going to be interviewing a lot of the doctors, a lot of the scientists, a lot of the researchers in the real truth about health, but we're going to go in a deeper dive. We're going to be able to talk about things because we're going to be able to engage them in a little bit of a different way, in a little different manner. We're going to cover drugs in the industry that are being released. We're going to cover supplements. We're going to be critical on both sides of the aisle, both sides of the natural and the conventional world, because we want to make sure that you have the information, even from a legislative standpoint, how you can be more active in participating in your environment to help with climate, to help with legislation on healthcare and access to healthcare. So we're really going to be taking this to another level. It's not just like, hey, this is plant-based diet information. Now we're going to look at really how you can take back your health. So sign up for our newsletter. Go to sendjevny.net or go to sendjevnystore.com. You'll see a little pop-up. Please put your name, phone number, and your email in there. Get on our newsletter list, and we'll let you know as soon as it starts coming out because we definitely want you to learn and listen to this. And lastly, I want to just end with, my name is Dr. Sunil Pai. It's been a pleasure to be reinvited back to A Real Truth About Health. I wrote a wonderful book called Inflammation Nation, and I'm available to help you get better. We do telehealth and in-person consultations available. So no matter where you live in the United States or around the world, we see patients all over, and we do things by Zoom, and we send the kits out from the labs, and we can look at testing even in places in Europe and other places around the world. We can always find a way to do that. We have people. It's amazing where we see people from, but we are in a consulting group, so I help you help your provider get you better. If you don't have an integrative doc, we can help you. Not a primary care. You definitely need to have a primary care, and we're not replacing your specialist. But if they don't have the time to help you, or you have a lot of questions on what else to do, or what else can you do to make your outcome improve, lowering the risk of side effects, helping you with diet, lifestyle, and epigenetic changes, please contact us. Our phone number here is 505-821-6300. You can email us at wellness@sendjevny.net, and you can look at our website, sendjevny.net, sendjevnystore.com. You can learn a little bit more about our anti-inflammatory Bosmeric at bosmeric.com, and obviously get a copy of our book at inflammationnation.com. It's also available on Audible for those who want to listen to it. And if you order it through us in our clinic, I'll be glad to sign a personalized signed copy for you. So again, my name is Dr. Sunil Pai. I'm glad and at your service anytime to help you with optimum health.